It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us today to talk about his book, Restoring Trust, A Couple's Guide to Getting Past Porn, is Dr. Peter Kleponis. Thanks for being here, Doctor.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
How long have you been studying this or working with couples that are dealing with pornography issues?
Well, I've been in practice for over 20 years now, but it's been the past 10 years that I've focused mainly on pornography addiction. And with that, I work with a lot of men and with a lot of couples.
Mm-hmm. And how common is pornography use within marriage?
Oh, this is a huge problem in marriages today. When we're looking at the current statistics on this, what we're finding is that 55% of married men say they watch pornography at least once a month, and 25% of married women say they view porn at least once a month. Right? So we're looking at, so let's say if it's 55% of men, we're looking at over half of all marriages today are affected by pornography use. And it's not just men who are viewing it, women too. We know that 1/3 of all visitors to pornographic websites are women. So, this is an issue that doesn't discriminate anymore. It used to be thought that this is only a men's issue. Well, now we know that this is for both men and women, and it's affecting marriages on both sides.
Well, and it seems like, I don't know the exact statistics, but this has been on a constant increase over the years. Is that true?
Oh, yes. Thanks to the internet and also just, the accessibility of it. It used to be that if you wanted pornography, you had to go out and look for it. You had to go to some sleazy porn shop somewhere in the seedy part of town and hope that nobody saw you going in or coming out. But with the internet, that's all stopped. You could do it in the privacy of your own home. No one will ever know about it. Mm-hmm. There's also the portability of it, thanks to cell phones and tablets and so forth. You can take it anywhere you go. Now it seems that we've got Wi-Fi everywhere. So, this is the type of thing where because of the accessibility of it and the portability of it, it's just too easy.
Well, and your book, I think, takes an interesting look at it through restoring trust within a couple. And I imagine we can look at two different scenarios within a couple, one being the user, one being the other spouse. First of all, what are the effects of pornography on the user?
Well, we now know that pornography is an addictive substance. We have the neuroscience evidence that shows us that this is addictive as any other addictive substance out there, whether it be drugs and alcohol, gambling, any of that. It has the exact same effect on the brain. So for the person who is, constantly viewing pornography, they're at high risk for developing an addiction to this. And of course, with addiction, this is something that is just going to monopolize one person's entire life. It's going to consume their life and lead to a life that is just totally unmanageable. I've seen marriages destroyed by pornography. Careers have been ended with something that just totally consumes the person.
I imagine also the sooner you treat it or address it, the easier it might be to overcome the addiction.
Well, that's true, and that's true of any addiction. First it requires, admitting that you have the problem, and then, being willing to go out and get the help that's needed. Finding a therapist who can help you develop a comprehensive recovery program that can lead to freedom. And the good news is that people can recover from this. They can find freedom from pornography use. They can protect their lives. They can save their marriages. They can save their careers. But, it takes a good dose of humility to admit you have the problem, and it takes courage to go out there and get the help that's needed.
But I imagine addiction isn't the only sign of it being a problem. There's might be people listening and say, well, I don't have an addiction, so this doesn't apply to me.
Well, any pornography use is a problem. Okay, it is a problem. When you look at the effect that it has on marriages, the American Association of Matrimonial Attorneys, also known as divorce lawyers, did a study on this, and they found that pornography use plays a significant role in 56% of all divorces. Right? So that's pornography use. We're not just talking addiction, but just pornography use is it. Now, If we're going to talk about pornography, the first thing we have to do is define it. What is it? And that can be a difficult thing because it can mean different things to different people. My definition of pornography is that it's any image that leads a person to use another person for their own sexual pleasure. It is devoid of love, relationship, and intimacy, and it is highly addictive, right? Now, the key word in here is use. Using another person. And that's what it's all about. You know, when a man is looking at a woman in pornography on his computer, he's not thinking that she's a person with thoughts and feelings. He is not thinking that she's somebody's daughter or wife or mother. He's not thinking about the terrible circumstances that led her into the pornography industry. And believe me, they are terrible. I don't know of any healthy young woman who would ever say she wants to go up to be a porn star. All he knows is that she is there for his sexual pleasure, and he is going to use her. And, of course, God did not create any of his children to be used. Right? And that's, you know, this is what pornography does. In pornography, we use people, we exploit people. We know that the pornography industry plays a big role in human trafficking. So why would anybody want to be a part of that simply for, quote, recreational purposes? All right. So any use of pornography is not good.
Right. We're talking with Dr. Peter Kleponis. His book is Restoring Trust, A Couple's Guide to Getting Past Porn. We talked about one half of the couple, the one that might be using it. What would be some of the effects on the other spouse?
Well, you know, nowhere do I see more damage done by pornography than in marriages to spouses. All right. This is traumatizing. You know, this is as serious as an extramarital affair. All right. Now let's take, you know, a typical couple where a husband is viewing pornography and the wife is hurt by this. Now, you know, the husband, we men, we have the ability to compartmentalize our lives. So we look at pornography and we may just see it as simply images on a computer screen. But to his wife, those aren't just images. Those are other women. All right. And oftentimes they're younger women with, quote, perfect bodies. So you have a wife in her 40s, you know, she's been married for many years, she's had a few children, she's very beautiful, but she doesn't look like the women in pornography, and she knows it. And she sees what her husband is doing, and she thinks to herself, my husband must think I'm ugly. I'm no longer desirable. I've lost my beauty. He wants to replace me with these young girls in porn. You know, so her thought is, you know, how can I compete? So there's this terrible sense of hurt and betrayal from this. For many women, the hurt and betrayal is so deep that they actually exhibit symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. In fact, we have a new name for this now. We call it betrayal trauma. They're traumatized by this. And it can take years to recover from this. So this is what people have to realize, you know. And husbands can experience this too if their wives have become addicted to pornography and are using it regularly. Husbands can feel that same type of betrayal. You know, often when we see an addiction, we focus on the addicted person and we rally around that person, but really we have to look at the spouses because they're deeply hurt too and they need help. They need recovery.
So when you're working with a couple that's dealing with a situation like this, what are some of the first steps that you walk through with them?
Well, the first thing is sort of educational, helping them to understand about pornography, that it is an addictive substance, understanding how a person becomes addicted, the roots of it, and most of the time the roots have nothing to do with sex, nothing to do with the spouse or their beauty or desirability. Often those roots go back to early childhood traumas and deep emotional wounds. I also want to educate them on how this affects spouses, educate them on betrayal trauma, you know, what this is all about. You know, knowledge is power. When they come to understand this, what they're dealing with, then there's greater hope. And then what I do is I work with both spouses to help them to develop comprehensive healing and recovery programs for them. It includes counseling. Oftentimes it includes support groups for both spouses who have been hurt. You know, the 12 steps for the addicted partner, a healing support group for those who have experienced trauma for the traumatized spouse. We work on bringing God into the process, right? Because we know that faith-based programs are far more effective than secular ones. And let's face it, you know, psychology is a great tool, but that's all it is a tool. You need God. You need to invite God into the process to walk with you through it, to really experience His healing and His grace and His mercy and His comfort. We work on education and growing in virtue. Virtue is a very important part of any type of healing and recovery program. Let's face it, if you're going to fight a vice, you have to do it with virtue. So we look at the virtues of courage and honesty and patience and perseverance and faith and forgiveness and so forth. So there's a lot we work on there. But for each spouse, whether it's the addicted spouse or the betrayed spouse, I work with them to develop their own unique customized program for healing and recovery. All right. And once they're on their way to their own personal recovery, then I bring them together as a couple to work on healing the marriage, healing the relationship. And for many of these couples, it means creating a whole new relationship. Because let's face it, a lot of the times, people are coming into the marriages with these addictions. And in order to have a healthy marriage, you need two healthy people. If one or both are not healthy, you're not going to have a healthy marriage.
Sure.
And if someone is coming into a marriage with an addiction, they're not healthy, right? So we're creating now a whole new marital relationship with two healthy people. And this can be a very exciting time for a couple because they actually get to sit down and think about their marriage and plan and decide what they want it to look like. How many couples actually do that? They sit down and say, okay, what do we want our marriage to look like? What's important to us? What do we value? What do we want to have as part of our marriage? And they create that healthy, happy, holy marriage that they've always wanted, the marriage God has always wanted for them. So there's a silver lining through this dark cloud that through it, not only do they, experience their own personal healing, but they create the marriage they've always wanted. So, so many times couples say, we just want to go back to the way things used to be. I say, oh, no, you don't want that, okay, because it wasn't healthy. We're going to create something new and wonderful.
So that's great if somebody's able to sit down with a counselor. Could they get the same benefits from just reading the book and working together as a couple, or would you recommend finding a counselor or a therapist that could help with this?
Yeah. I recommend finding a therapist because every couple is different. Every couple is unique. Books are great. They're wonderful resources, but that's all they are resources. A book really can't help you put together your own customized recovery program. You need to be working with someone who truly understands addiction, who understands trauma, who understands, what it means to have a healthy marriage, and can be there to guide you to create that healthy marriage and that healthy life. And like I said, when we're getting back to the roots of addiction, often it goes back to deep traumas, deep emotional wounds going back to early childhood. A book really can help you address that and work on the healing of that. This is where counseling is so important.
And I know you also did a webinar, a webcast that you did with OSV. Is there different things that were covered in the webinar that aren't covered in the book or vice versa?
Well, the webinar is sort of an overview of the book.
Okay.
So there's a lot more available in the book than on the webinar, and I plan on doing some more webinars with OSV to address many different aspects of this. But the OSV webinar was sort of an overview.
Where can people get a copy of the book?
You can get it from our Sunday Visitors website. You can also get it on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. It is also on the EWTN Religious Catalog.
All right. Well, again, it's called Restoring Trust, a couple's guide to getting past porn. And we've been talking with the author, Dr. Peter Kleponis. Thanks for being here again and sharing this with us and all the good work that you're doing for married couples.
Thank you for having me.